Today you'll hear the story of Smoke, the combat Yorkshire Terrier from the Pacific War. So, roll the intro. In early 1944, the Australians and Americans were retaking the northeastern portion of the island of Papua New Guinea, north of Australia, from Japanese forces. Under the command of General Hatazo Adachi, the offensive was led by the Australian 9th Infantry Division, which was being supported by small American units. This force was only able to dislodge the Japanese from the Huon Peninsula after 4 long months of fighting, forcing them to remain concentrated on the northern coast of Papua New Guinea. It was during these advances, in February of 44, that a soldier found, quite frightened, at the bottom of a trench, a little Yorkshire female dog, less than a year old. The soldiers initially thought she was a Japanese mascot, but they took her to a prisoner camp and realized she didn't respond to any commands in Japanese nor in English. One of the soldiers, thinking that the little dog's long hair made her suffer in the tropical heat of New Guinea, took some scissors and gave her a very rough haircut. A few days later, the soldier who had found the little dog in the trench was playing a game of poker and losing everything he had in bets. That's when he met Corporal William Beale Wynne, who paid 2 Australian pounds, which was equivalent at the time to $6.44 for the little dog. And then the other soldier was able to resume his poker bets. Beale Wynne was a resident of Cleveland, Ohio, and at 20 years old, he had enlisted in the United States Air Force in January of 43. Because he had already completed a technical course in high school, he ended up being recruited for the 26th Photographic Reconnaissance Squadron, part of the 5th United States Air Force. The 5th Air Force operated in the Southwest Pacific, with bases in Australia and New Guinea. And that's where Wynne's unit was sent, in October of 43. At the time, the photographic reconnaissance squadrons always had to operate very close to the front lines. One thing was to increase the range of the Lockheed F-5, which were photographic versions of the classic Lockheed P-38 Lightning fighter. Another factor was that these planes had to return quickly, and the content of their films had to be processed to be used as information for locating enemy forces. In February of 44, his unit was transported to New Guinea at the Najab base, which had just been recaptured from the Japanese. It was there that Wynne found the little one, in New York, which weighed only 1.8 kilos and was just 18 centimeters long. He quickly gave her the nickname Smoke, which means smoky or little smoke, most likely because of the malnourished and dirty appearance the little dog had. But thanks to Wynne's care, Smoke quickly gained weight and a new appearance. He shared his sea rations with her, which were pre-cooked meals distributed in cans. There were 3 flavors: meat with beans, meat with mashed potatoes, and meat with vegetable soup. Occasionally, Wynne shared a can of ham or spam with her. However, during the entire war, Smoke never had food made for dogs. She went everywhere accompanied, riding on his backpack, always drawing attention wherever she went. She also slept with Wynne in his tent on a blanket made from a green felt card table towel. Smoke was very smart and quickly learned several tricks, making her even more famous throughout the sector. That's when the magazine Yankee Down Under launched a contest to select the best mascot in the Southwest Pacific. This magazine was a version of the well-known Yankee the Army Weekly, a weekly United States Army publication. But since it was very difficult to bring those copies from the United States to the region, a local version started being published in Sydney, Australia, exclusively for those soldiers serving in the Southwest Pacific. The magazine opened entries asking for records of tricks that the mascots could do, and Wynne decided that his would be the most fantastic of all. Smoke then learned to parachute, with parachutes made especially for her, from a height of 9 meters. She performed 7 jumps to make sure the feat was being properly photographed. But the last jump gave Wynne quite a scare. A gust of wind closed the parachute and carried Smoke away from the blanket that was spread out to catch her. She could have been seriously injured or even killed. Wynne never did the trick again, Out of over 400 entries, Smoke was chosen as the champion mascot of the Southeast Pacific in July 1944. She even won a trophy. Look at that. That same month, Wynne caught dengue fever and had to be hospitalized. His colleagues took Smoke to visit him at the hospital, and he asked the nurse to let the little dog stay with him while he was hospitalized. The thing was that other soldiers saw the little dog and recognized her from the magazine article. They then asked Wynne to show the little dog to other wounded soldiers in the hospital, and the results surprised everyone. Smoke's joy had an immediate effect on the recovering soldiers, restoring their happiness and cheering them up again. Seeing the little dog journeying through the war with them, the result of contact with the dog on the patient's mental recovery was remarkable and quickly caught the attention of the senior medical officers. Wynne was then called to present Smoke's tricks to a group of soldiers in several hospitals, including the incredible act where she walked on 2 tightropes, blindfolded. During one performance, an emotional scene occurred, which Bill Wynne described years later. Let's see what happened. When I started to speak and Smoke was doing some tricks, a man approached and began to murmur. One of the nurses told me, "Mr. Wynne, let him hold the dog, let him." So I did. He started to hold her up in the air and murmur louder, making all sorts of very happy sounds. That's when I looked and the nurses were all crying. And I asked what was happening. They said he hadn't spoken for 2 years, didn't show any emotion, and barely moved. When he held the dog, that was his response. But do you think Smoke's life was all glamour and fame? No, it wasn't. Her air base in New Guinea was under constant attack from the Japanese, and she survived 150 of those attacks while she was in the region. And things were about to get even worse for her. In August 1944, Wynne's squadron was moved to Biak, northwest of New Guinea, which had been under American attack since May. The Japanese had built a large air base on that island, and General Douglas MacArthur, Supreme Commander of the Southwest Pacific, wanted that base neutralized for the future invasion of the Philippines. And it was right there in Biak, with 5,000 Japanese soldiers fiercely resisting inside caves just 3 kilometers away, that Wynne took the most famous photo of Smoke, with her happily posing inside his M1 helmet. More than just serving as a photo prop, Wynne used his helmet to bathe Smoke. Due to her long fur and the heat of the region, she had to take frequent baths to prevent her from getting infested with parasites. And the helmet was the perfect container for that. So, are you enjoying the video so far? Give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and follow us on Instagram. It's really growing. Wynne was then given the mission to take aerial photographs aboard the Consolidated Patrol Bomber Consolidated Catalina seaplanes from the 3rd Rescue and Salvage Squadron. He made several flights throughout the region around Biak, with Smoke always by his side. On long missions, Smoke would spend hours in the backpack hanging beside the machine guns used to drive off enemies. From September to December 1944, Wynne and Smoke flew 12 search and rescue missions on the Catalinas, and that's when the 26th Photographic Reconnaissance Squadron was awarded the Presidential Unit Citation, a collective decoration from the President of the United States recognizing the unit's high merit in combat. And Smoke, as an honorary member of the squadron, was also decorated. But now, the time was coming for General Douglas MacArthur to fulfill his promise to liberate Manila, the capital of the Philippines, which had been under Japanese control since 1942. Manila was on Luzon Island in northern Philippines. On January 4, 1945, the Americans sent a gigantic naval force to invade and land at Lingayen Gulf, on the western shore of Luzon. This force was met by a massive formation of kamikazes. After a heavy naval bombardment of the coast, the Americans began landing their soldiers, even with the fleet under constant enemy air attack. In the next few days, 203,608 soldiers landed on the beach, but kamikazes sank 24 American ships. Wynne and Smoke were on one of the landing ships when another one of their special moments happened. As they approached the beach, under enemy fire, and with the ship's deck shaking heavily from the constant firing of the anti-aircraft defense batteries, Wynne noticed that suddenly Smoke started barking uncontrollably, very scared, as if she wanted to warn about something. He immediately threw himself to the ground, a fraction of a second before a salvo of Japanese artillery hit the ship's deck, striking 8 soldiers who were around him. After having his life saved that day, Wynne started calling Smoke the little angel of the trench. But Smoke's most remarkable moment would come in the following days, when Wynne and his colleagues were responsible for setting up the infrastructure of the Lingayen airfield in the southern part of the Gulf. The communications personnel had to run a telephone cable underneath the runway. This runway was crossed by a metal duct 21 meters long and 20 centimeters in diameter. It turns out that the sections of the pipe had shifted a bit, allowing dirt to get inside. This caused some points to have up to half of their diameter blocked. With the reconnaissance planes in high demand, the entire squadron would have to be grounded for 3 days until the crew opened the runway, removed the duct, installed a new duct, and repaved the runway. At that point, an engineer suggested asking Wynne if Smoke could run a cable through the duct. He decided it was worth a try, and the mutual trust between the two was demonstrated that day. Wynne attached a small wire to Smoke's collar, which would later be used to pull the telephone cables. He then ran to the other end of the track and started calling for her. Her first steps were exploratory. She ran about 3 meters in and then went back. But I stayed at the other end and called firmly, "Come, Smoke." She went into the duct again and started sneaking and crawling through the tighter parts. Then a lot of dust rose up because of the movement of her paws, and I couldn't see her anymore. I called out desperately, not knowing if she would be able to get out or not. Then about 6 meters away, I saw 2 little brown eyes and heard a soft whimper. 4 meters from me, she started to run. We were so happy with Smoke's success that we petted her for a full 5 minutes. Smoke's achievement saved the work of 250 men and prevented the entire squadron from being grounded for 3 days. For these actions, she was promoted and started being called Corporal Smoke. At the end of July 1945, their squadron was moved to Okinawa, and that's where Wynne and Smoke were when the war ended on August 15th. But there would still be one final test for the two of them on October 12th. Okinawa was hit by the worst typhoon in 20 years. This typhoon virtually destroyed every building on the island. Smoke and Wynne managed to find shelter, but 500 people lost their lives in that typhoon. The next month, Wynne returned to the United States with Smoke. He got married in September of '46 and spent his honeymoon in Hollywood, looking for a movie role for Smoke. Although he didn't get any movie roles, Smoke ended up becoming a star on the first television shows in the Cleveland, Ohio area. In fact, she even had her own show called Castles in the Air, where Smoke performed many of her tricks. She appeared in a total of 42 live television shows and also traveled all over the United States, performing in hospitals. Between the late 1940s and the early 1950s, Smoke entertained millions of people all over the country. In 1955, her health began to decline. And already blind in one eye, Smoke passed away quietly on the morning of February 21, 1957, at the age of 14. Wynne buried her in a 30mm ammunition box in a park in Lakewood, Ohio. In 2005, the monument was erected at the site, marking the place where Smoke is buried. Even though she never had access to veterinarians during the war, Smoke never got sick. In the Philippines, she walked on coral for 4 months, never developing any problems with her paws. While this video is being recorded, Bill Wynne is still alive at 97 years old, having published his memoirs with Smoke under the title Yorkie Doodle Dandy. Smoke was considered the first therapy dog in history, and she is also credited with generating the vast interest in the Yorkshire breed today, which in the 1940s was only marginally known. Like this video? Give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications on new videos. I'll stop here for now. Thank you again for watching, and here's a big hug from SDG.